Hello and welcome to the third part of this hybrid action cue that we're putting together. I'm going to do this one ever so slightly differently because there was so much to do at the end of part 2 that I knew I wasn't going to be able to cover it in a 30-minute video. So I'm going to sort of do it a bit like a cue breakdown, but I'll do it part by part that were added, so you can really see how the final shape came together. I'll play it through for you first, of course, because then you'll get an idea of the whole sound at the end, and I'll then come back and break it down for you with all the automation and how the different bits fit together. See you in a bit. Okay, so you've just heard what the whole thing sounds like. What I'll do is, like I said, I'll go through it a bit like a cue breakdown. I will do a cue breakdown on this in the future for people who just want to see the very basics laid out. But as you can see, I haven't done any of the colouring or labelling that I would normally do. This is literally, as soon as I had finished, this is what I've ended up with. So you can see sort of how I've, like the choir was a decision made later on in the composing process. So we had the sort of basics of the strings. In fact, you can see I haven't even renamed them properly. So we've got Albion Neo was the strings I used because they're a really nice close sound, and we had these already going on. The first thing I'm going to do actually is turn off the mastering. All I did with the mastering was left Logic to do its thing and change the setting to punch. So we're going to turn that off just so you can hear what I was hearing when I was composing it, because the mastering is the last thing I tend to add. So we had this nice ostinato. Remember, we're in 6/8. And then I felt we needed something coming in to support the high end, give a bit of tension. So that's where the, again, Albion Neo, but we used flautando. Just slowly going up the scale. Then they're doubled. Then when we come to the breakdown section, I've just put it on the B strings, so it's a bit subtler. Now for those strings, let's have a look at the automation that was going on, which was mainly because these B strings come in this B section. I actually wanted them to be lower because they're taken over by other parts later on, so you hear the volume drop and then slowly builds as we go through the section. There's a dropout at the end because that creates an edit point. So that's the strings. Mosaic bass literally keeps that pulsing feeling going underneath the whole way. And then in the B section, to come out of it, we have a rising section. And that edit point. The toms, I think I had in from the very start. And we got some low hits, or ticks, high ticks even. And then we're building on that. With those metal shimmers. And the idea for this is we are building up the different layers, bring it down slightly, so we cut out the ticks in the B section and then bring everything back in. In terms of automation, it was only these toms that I really wanted. The other two don't really make that much difference, although I have automated on here. The stereo delay, that's what I did. So there is stereo delay on at the moment, but when it starts, this one, we actually bypass the stereo delay. And then it adds it back in here. We're not going to hear it unless I play that whole thing, but you get the idea. And again, it's a way of changing up the sound. So just before that B section, we get rid of the stereo delay. We add in the stereo delay, so we're not bypassing it anymore. And that just adds an extra bit of width to it. But like I say, those toms really were taking over a lot of the cue. So by automating their volume, it gives us a real sense of building as we need it. So at the end here, and then we're up to the -6, which is roughly where I set them on the mixer as the top level that I wanted them. Okay, so after we got all those in, actually I might have already had these hits in as well from Uncharted. I think I did. Just adding a bit of atmosphere. I did add some horns coming in, but I've kept them very low in the mix. So even though they're not automated, they are mixed very low. Huh. Somebody's off on a skiing holiday. That's always pleasant. There we go. And then we get them building. So they're just a supporting act, really. Finally, what did I add there? Tenor trombones to build them up a bit more. So they're a lot louder, but this is because we're coming to the end section. Might as well label them while we're going. And this is a bit more damage. And these are the swells. They're quite subtle. So if I play one. So they've got that metallic sort of sound that works quite well with the Uncharted. And they consistently come in between sections because they don't even override even the edit points. So I've put them in early enough in the bar that they're out of the way. Then we used Colossus, Albion Colossus, the synth section, to add these nice pads. And a bit like you saw happen with the Flautando strings, doubling to get the extra effect of a build. Again, we used them in the second half of the B section and then use them to close out, again doing single layer and then doubling to finish off. BBC violin at the end. Just to add some extra atmosphere, and then the choir. So again, when introducing a new instrument, let's bring it in somewhere before you hear it at the end. So I decided to bring it in the B section. So you get more of the male voices lower down, and then when you transpose that up an octave, it goes more to the female voices. This is Eric Whitaker choir. Just doing the R's, I believe. Oh no, all episodic ooh, nah. I don't think they hold out long enough to get to the nah bit, so we get more of the oohs. That channel was never used, so we can get rid of that. And initially, I wasn't sure about using the Logic Drummer, but I went back to it and automated it. So when we first tried it, it was very in your face, which really wasn't working particularly well. So what I did was automate it, as you can see here. But there's so much else going on, and we're at a relatively low volume. It just reassures you that there's hybrid stuff going on, so rock kit is there in the orchestra. And you can see from the waveforms that each time I've gone to a different section, I've actually decided how much fill and complexity there is. For example, here we've got, let's get rid of the automation. So here we've got the kick, snare and hats. Here we go to just hats, but with some fills. As we go along, you'll see the fill amount and fill complexity goes up in these last 3 sections. So that's the most fill I wanted, slightly less and lower. Those two are slightly different because we start on the hats mainly and then we bring the kick in and then it builds up to the end. So that's it from how the thing came together as a whole piece. I've sort of cheated in terms of reverbs because I've got the heavy kit reverb, which is just added by default, and I've left that alone. I have put some percussion reverb and some brass reverb on. That was just using Air Studio. And the drums, Bright Hall, and then for the percussion, and then the horns specific reverb for the brass. Those are on channels 10 and 11. So here you can see 10 are our damaged toms and they are going into that reverb. And 11 are our trombones and our Spitfire Studio brass. Both got quite a bit going into the brass reverb. They're mixed quite low, so didn't need, well, it didn't matter that you added quite a lot of reverb because the total amount didn't add up. As you can see, I've got some EQ filters on Mosaic Bass. I've obviously taken off the top end because we don't need any of that. The toms I've actually taken off some of the low end, and then Damage and Colossus Synth have had their top ends trimmed so that we don't cut into the other higher registers, which are being covered by things like the strings. I tend not to try and mess with things like Albion Neo in terms of EQing them, because they do cover such a wide spectrum, and if you start cutting out bits of those samples, it can sound a bit unrealistic. I think that is it. Obviously the stereo out is only there because I do like to put in the fade at the end to make sure everything is out by the time. So you put the cycle range on, that's where it's going to bounce out to. So in the very last section, just make sure that everything is out and done. So there you go, the secrets behind this hybrid action track. I hope you found that useful. Have a go at making one yourself, why not? Follow that idea as a template if you like. We've got basically an A section, a B section, and it's the A section again, but with more things that have been added in as we've gone along. I'll play it again as a bit of an outro, because now you know the secrets, it might make even more sense as we go through. I hope you found this interesting. I'm going to try a different way of approaching real-time composing, and see what you think of that when it comes up next time. Bye for now.